Hello everyone, this is a demonstration about generative surface design in CATIA. This workbench is very popular, yet a lot of people shy away from using it just because they feel that it's too difficult or too complicated. In this demo we'll try to make it simple and focus on the basics and see how this can be used in various types of designs. It's very popular in aerospace and automotive and also industrial design. If you try to design something fancy and organic, solids normally don't accomplish that. So we are trying to focus on this workbench and get the most out of it. So we'll start by going into the menu here. As you can see under shape design you can find the different workbenches, but we're interested in generative shape design. It's just a fancy name for surfacing. I also have it as one of my favorites up here. So if I go into generative shape design and click OK for the name, it will launch the basic mode. As you can see, the icons are scattered all over, and you can clearly move them anywhere that you want. Start using it. Um, a lot of times people think, how do we start designing a surface-based part? A lot of it depends on how you begin your model, and it's very important that we start with a really good wireframe setup. Whether you use sketching or whether you use 3D wireframe, it all leads to building a surface, and in the end it also can become a solid as an option. Um, it's fairly easy to use once you get the basics and understand it. It is an advanced workbench meant to design organic shapes, whether they are um, industrial design or aerospace and automotive. That stuff is clearly available. Also, these surfaces can be placed in a machining workbench, and you can start cutting apart. So the beauty of that also is the associativity between the parts, and so if one surface changes, the other updates instantly. Um, and You can clearly see that the tree will house all the information that you require. You can see that the main toolbar that we're looking for here is this one here. It's called the surfacing toolbar. You also have another main toolbar. If I double click on this one here, it's called the wireframe toolbar. This will build your 3D wireframe geometry that can become eventually surfaces. And you can also look at this toolbar here, and if you reverse it by holding down Shift and drag it, it's called Operations. That's another important toolbar that we'll talk about later. You still have your standard toolbars at the bottom, which controls your views and everything else, so pay attention to that. But normally we are concerned with these toolbars here on the right. So what is the general process in building a surface-based model? As we said, we have to go into the workbench correctly, start any wireframe, whether it's 2D or 3D, start building our basic surfaces, and then finalize our surfacing by cutting and trimming and joining everything together. And as an option, you can switch to the part design workbench and turn that model into a solid. So it's important that we start with a proper reference geometry. A good source of reference geometry is the plane. You can also check out the ones in the tree or build your own. So I can basically click on the plane icon here on the right. It's going to start saying, okay, what would you like to do? Well, I'd like to create one that's offset is from this one here. That's say 50 millimeters. I can hit enter, and you have an offsetted plane that you can sketch on or do whatever you like to do. You'll notice that the toolbar for wireframe is slightly different than one for part design. This one is a little bit more complex and it has way more options. So you'll find that you have the point, line, and plane, which we've seen before, but you also have additional icons that relate to surfacing. So you might have to tackle that in order to design more complex models. So let's start with the simple ones. How do we begin with a point? So first off is we'll click on the point icon here. You'll find that it starts in an absolute position, so 0, 0, 0. I can simply key in whatever value I'd like, so let's just say maybe 20. Here we'll type in 30, and over here we'll type in 40. And once you key in your coordinates, you can simply just hit OK, and you have a 3D point floating in 3D space. You can easily go back and zero everything in, and I can simply go ahead and hit OK. Now I have a point at the origin, And if I zoom in closer, you can see the 2 points. And that's basically what we're looking for. There is also the ability to create points and plane repetitions. This is a really nice tool that allows you to build points based on a curve. So if I quickly sketch something onto, say, the X and Y, and if I build my spline, let's say, a few clicks here, it builds my spline for me. So if I double click, I can exit out of here. And once you have the curve, you can easily go inside the point icon and click on point and plane repetition. So if you give it a few seconds, it comes up and says, what would you like to do? Well, I'd like this curve to be selected. How many would you like to be on it? So I can say I'd like 8 points built. I can preview that, and you'll see that the software can drop these 8 points for me. If I find that's too high, I can drop it down to 6. Preview again, it will space it out evenly. Another very nice tool is the ability to create normal planes at these point positions. So it will be 90 degrees going through that point. So if I look at it from the top, you'll see it better. I'll just go ahead, check that box, preview again. You can see that these planes are running through these points. So if I go into 3D again, you can see the nice setup here. And if I hit OK, it goes ahead and builds that for me. And what's also nice is that I can go in and click on these planes and be able to sketch on them. And this is great if you're doing lofting or sweeping. That does come into play real handy. There's also a tool called Extremum. Not that I use it much myself, but it is something that you can use. It is available as an advanced tool, which I believe you have to pay extra for. So if I hit OK to start a new fresh setup, and if I click on Sketch and on the X and Y, I can start my spline here. And as you can see, I'm just building a quick sketch here. Now if I exit out of here and go look for what they call the Extremum tool, it will basically find the extremes of a curve based on a direction. So if I click on the element and I tell it I'd like you to tell me what's the maximum along the y direction, the computer will develop a point at the highest possible point in that curve. If I wanted the lowest, I can simply just go minimum. As you can see, this just happens to be the lowest point in that curve. So if I hit OK, it does create it for me. Now what's neat is if I double click on the curve again and I move that endpoint higher, a little bit higher like that, and then hit OK, the computer will update that and will place the point not over here anymore, but down here, because that is the lowest point or the minimum point here. So it is dynamic and it's intelligent to update whenever you want it to. So it's great to find the extreme lowest or highest point on a curve or a surface, and it will do that quite efficiently. We talked about points earlier. We can now go back to our original model, part number 1, and try to connect the 2 points we had earlier. So if I delete this result that we have here on our screen and also delete the sketch here, it will be left with these 2 points. So I can easily go in, click on the line command. This is a 3D line as opposed to a 2D line. So I can simply click on this point, click on that one, hit OK, and you have yourself a nice little straight line between the two 3D points. Also, we can create what they call an axis. An axis is really useful in cases where, let's say, I have a sketched circle. And if I quickly go ahead and create a cylinder now out of this simple circle, so say we go extrude that, and we hit OK, you can see that I can now go into the line command. There's something called the axis tool. If I click it, I can click on the surface. You can see the computer is now developing a center axis here. And I hit OK, and as you can see, it creates that for me. Of course, the object has to be fully round. If it's slightly oval or non-circular, it will not be able to develop that axis for you. So that's one point. Another interesting tool that we can deal with is the polyline tool. So right within here, you'll see the polyline. So I can pick on it, and be able to connect points, like connecting dots really. What's nice is that I can click on existing points, or I can right click and build points on the fly. So I can say I know that my next point has to be 50, maybe 40, and maybe 90 over here. So as you can see, it builds that point for me. If I go ahead and hit OK, it will create that line to it. And if I right click again and say create another point, I can develop another one based on 20 and say 70, and maybe we'll go to 150. As you can see, it builds that for me. I hit OK, and you can see that the polyline is building. So if I hit OK and I click on it in the tree just to highlight it, I can see that I've just built a 3D polyline. This is, I don't know, great if you would like to create a pipe or a tubing. Of course, after you put the fillets in, that will work out to your advantage. And so we can use lines to our quite easily here. Also, there is the axis system. Axis system is a tool that's available on the tools toolbar right here. If I pick on that, I am able to develop a axis system which has axes and a plane system included. So if I pick on here, you can see that it builds it for me. If I'm interested in rotating it or having it face something else, I can just tell, okay, I want this to be my x-axis, and you can pop in a y-axis and so on. And it's used in cases where the computer is not giving you enough flat faces or something to sketch on. This can come in and become really handy. Not that too many people use it all the time, but it does have its place, and it's an option that you can exercise. So if I hit OK, you can see that I have my axis system here. And what's neat is that if I hit the sketch icon, I can sketch on any of these planes, and there are 3 attached to this axis system. Note that it's actually in the tree. If I expand, and you can have multiple axis systems also for any part, but you can only have one active at a time. All that is available to us when it comes to creating that. So that's how we're able to create an axis system. Ideally, I would use it more in solids because it's able to attach itself to a solid properly, but you can still use it in surfacing and make it current and use it as much as you want. It's very important to realize that the curvature that you build in a surface-based model will affect how the surface comes out. So if there are imperfections in my wireframe, it will reflect badly on my surface. So if I go to that other example that we had, and as you can see, this is a nice looking surface. So if I go ahead and extrude that, I can easily grab one of the limits and then hit OK, and you can see that I have myself a nice little surface that's very smooth, very organic in shape. However, if I end up creating another sketch onto the X and Y and accidentally create a line and then another line with a little V shape here, and then I'll come in closer with another one like so. And if you try to exit that sketch and extrude it, I'm exaggerating of course here, you can see that that imperfection carries over to your surface-based model, and you can see that that gap is there. So very essential that you perfect the wireframe that you're using. This way it will produce a surface that's actually appropriate for you. And so we need curvature to be clean in order to produce a good surface. One of the things that we can do within the workbench here is the ability to use the advanced wireframe tools that we talked about earlier. So one of them is called projection. Um, if I click on the projection tool, you'll find that it comes up. Now a great tip I can give you here is that if you're in the tool and you hit F1 on the keyboard and you have the help system installed, it will actually launch in a browser for you. As you can see, I have my documentation here. What's also cool, not only does it talk to you about the command, but it also allows you to open a sample file right within CATIA. So I can easily hit open, and the software will launch a nice little sample file for me so I can understand how this tool works. So let's hide some of this extra stuff here. right click hide, right click hide, and also right click and hide this one here. So we have a surface, we have a 2D wireframe item built on a sketch, and we'd like to project that onto the surface. How do we do that? I'll simply click on the projection tool. I'll pick on the surface here, or rather the curve, pick on the surface second, and indicate a direction. Ideally, I'd go along the axis indicated here. So if I click the z-axis, I can go ahead and preview. Looking really good. I'll hit OK. As you can see, it produces that curve right on that surface when before it didn't. So a very nicely placed projection curve that can become very useful later on while I'm working on this design. I can use it for trimming purposes or whatever. It's right on the surface. It's lying on right on top of it. So that can be a really useful tool for us. Another interesting tool is called the reflect line curve. Not used frequently, but it's quite powerful actually. If you click on the reflect line icon again and hit F1, my help system is coming up on my other screen. I'll just open up the sample file and then you'll be able to see it. So I'll hit OK. And there it is. So as you can see, there's an organic shape here and a simple cylinder. So if I zoom closer, I am able to click on the icon, pick on the surface in question, pick an origin. They've provided us with that here. It's just a simple line with an endpoint. And if I preview, you're actually able to produce a curve. As you can see, it's building itself quite nicely. If I increase the angle, it will oddly reduce the size of it. If I reverse that and make it wider, so as you can see, it's getting larger and larger. So let's just say I want to bring it down to 115. I'm happy with these results. Of course, there are limits to what you can do. So I'll bring it back, preview that, looking good. I'll hit OK. It produces that curve right onto that surface again. So it can be really useful. We'll discuss more about trimming and modifying surfaces, but I can easily go here, click on split this surface here using what? Using this curve here, and you can just basically preview the result, hit OK, and the computer is able to split that and keep only that result here. So this can be one of the applications for using this tool. I would imagine people that use molding a lot would use it because they need to split their objects and create the cores and the cavities. So that can be a tool that can be utilized. Another tool that is available is the intersection tool. So if I click on this guy here and also go ahead and hit F1 on the keyboard while I'm in the command, it launches the help system. I'll open up the sample file. Again, if you have that help system loaded, you can benefit from this feature. So here we are looking at two surfaces that are intersecting one another. If I hide the surfaces, you'll see that there's nothing there right now. Let me undo and bring them back. So once I have these two surfaces, I'd like to intersect them and build a curve out of that. Find the intersection tool, click the first surface, click the second surface, preview, and simply hit OK. And it's hard to see, but there is actually a curve there. Some people like to click the curvature and color it differently, and even make it thicker, just to make it stand out more. And now I can just hide these surfaces, and you can see that that curve is left after it produces that intersection for us. So again, quite a powerful tool. It helps us to take any two surfaces and build a curve out of that intersection. Another tool that we can utilize is called parallel curve. If we go back to our reflect line example, and I can actually take that particular curve and offset it while staying on that surface. So I can easily go into the parallel icon, or parallel curve rather, and I can click the curve tool and then pick the support that it has to rest on, and I can simply hit preview, and it doesn't do anything because you need obviously a value. So I'm going to type in 5 millimeters, and it does the offset for us while staying on the surface. I'm going to simply hit OK. I can now hide my surface, and I can loft if I want. Lofting is quite a popular tool here, so I can click the first, click the second, preview. It looks really good, and I hit OK. And as you can see, that strip is built using that parallel curve that I generated just now. So again, parallel curving can be useful in situations like this here. Of course, you still have your standard stuff, so if you fancy using a simple circle, you can easily click one. I can tell it that my center is here. Support is maybe based on this plane here. You can create a partial circle, like this one here, or you can create a fully closed circle. Your choice. If I hit OK, you can see that I have myself a nice little circle built in 3D space. This is slightly different than, of course, the circle built at the sketch level. You can see the circle has a separate entry in the tree, indicating that's slightly different than your standard sketch circle. This is a wireframe circle. Also, we have the ability to click corners. So if I go into the circle command, pull it out, you'll find that I have the ability to create corners. So if I click that, again, we'll try to open a sample file. And that corner sample file is opening. So as you can see, there's many sample files here. This is a really powerful tool because, as you can see, this curve here is very much a 3D curve, and it's like twisting and turning in 3D space. So I can easily say, give me a corner based on these two curves here, and I can reduce the value, say, to 25. And it builds almost like a web for me, but you can only keep one of these results. So in orange, that's the current highlighted one. I can go to different results and pick whichever. I like this result here. I hit OK, and there we are. We have a nice little curve. If you double click on it, you can also trim the excess material, and you can preview that. And if I hit OK, it only keeps that one for me. Double click on it one more time, go to the next solution, hit OK. As you can see, keeps the top one instead. So whichever one you like is available, and the software helps us do that quite easily. That's what we call a corner. Connecting curves is also something we can do. So if I go into a sample file on this one, and say I open up connect curve number 1, you can see that this here is a pyramid-like shape. I'll just rotate it to look at the top of it. So you can see at the top of the pyramid we have points developed, and we can actually create connect curve between the points. If I click this one here, you can see the arrow is going the wrong way, so I can click the red arrow, reverse it, click the other point, so that helps in detailing that. So if I hit OK, preview, it's able to trim that object, and as you can see, it builds a curve and gets rid of the sharp corner. And I can keep going, of course, and build maybe another one here. And based on that, again, it's twisting a lot, so we just need to clean it up. We hit OK, and there we are. So a pretty neat tool. Allows you to connect curves that are otherwise disconnected. Also, splines are available to us. Splines are very powerful tools. They're heavily used in organic shapes, automotive, aerospace, anything that's non-linear. So I can click on the spline here, click on the first point, click on the second, click on that third point there. As you can see, the computer is developing that for me. I can even go down to maybe this point here, and then maybe go to that one there. So you can see that 3D curve is building itself quite nicely. I can easily just hit OK, and there we are. So I can right click, hide the unnecessary lines, and just keep what I want. And you can see that that curve is building itself in 3D space. So it's almost like spiraling down from the top of the pyramid to the bottom of it. Another nice tool is the helix tool. I'll show you how to use that. Right within the spline, you'll find the helix. For that, I'm going to start from scratch, actually. We'll go to a new session. Click on the helix. It wants to know a starting point, so let's just go ahead and create a point for it. I will move it away in the y-axis at, say, 50. And I can hit OK. It wants to know an axis, so I'm going to give it the z-axis. Let's just right-click and say z, and it does that for me. I can tell it that my height is 50, and my pitch is going up to 5, clearly shows a nice little spring. I can simply hit OK, and there you go. You have yourself a nice little wireframe spring. You can always double click on it and be able to modify it. Some people like to add a taper to it, so I can just say I need 15 degrees of a taper. Looks like one of those springs that batteries rest on, and if I hit OK, you can see that our spring is now tapered. We'll stop the demo right here because we'll try to break this into sections. So we've discussed so far how to start the workbench, how to create different wireframe elements, and how to modify them to our benefit. The next demo will be how to build basic surfaces. Stay tuned for that.